Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Scores Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, well, the year is wrapping up. We're toward the end of it. And with that, EDH Rec has announced and released the Salt Scores of 2023. What cards make Commander players the saltiest? And with that, well, we've got a brand new list, a brand new ranking of today's saltiest, most hated Commanders out there. So with all that said, let's jump into that list. So we're going to start things off at number 20. I initially actually thought we were going to be doing 10 of these, but I decided that because, well, I'm going to let you decide for yourself, because there are some of these commanders that, yes, are legendary creatures, but they're on the salt score list because of, well, they're great in the 99 as well, and yeah, they can be brutal there too, so I decided to keep 20. You can decide for yourselves, and I'll try to mention too, in my opinion, which one of these are on the list, not just because of a commander, but because they are in the 99 of certain decks too, and they can be very salty regardless. First up, one of those that probably is there for that reason, Oolong the Ceaseless Hunger. A 10/10 Eldrazi that costs 10 mana. Whenever you cast a spell, exile 2 target permanents. Indestructible when it attacks defending player, exiles the top 20 cards of their library. Now, this has a salt score, again, at the 20th spot compared to all the other commanders, at 1.68, which is quite high. And yeah, I mean, for many reasons. Hey, it is, number one, a massive threat. 10/10 Indestructible, hard to deal with. And on top of that, it can get rid of things as soon as you cast it. And also, hey, yeah, it's also a win condition, just milling players as well. So there's a lot of factors to it. Of course, it can be a brutal commander. This one I will lean towards, and you can comment below with your thoughts as well. It being on the list, more so because of it being the 99 of certain decks out there. Moving on, though, one that is on the list for it being a commander, we got Coma Cosmos Serpent. 6/6 Serpent that can't be countered. It costs 7 mana in Simic. Beginning of each upkeep, not just your own, each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue Serpent. Creature token name comes coil. Sacrifice other Serpent. Choose one. Tap down a permanent attack ability can't be activated this turn. Gains indestructible out of turn is the other option. A salt score of 1.69. Good enough again for 19th place right now. And yes, I personally believe that this is on the list because of it being a commander. It is, again, really hard to deal with, being indestructible. Maybe we'll see a little theme around, like, hard to deal with commanders in this. We might. So it can be indestructible quite easily. Again, with each stripper on the table, you're making 4 3/3s that can be sacrificed to it. So again, 12 power across 4 bodies that can make this indestructible, or tap down things to and take away activated abilities, which, hey, if you got a commander with an activated ability, you're not going to be able to activate that. So it's a very powerful commander that, again, is hard to deal with. It can't be countered, and it can just tap down things to just dominate the game while creating a army on its own. So it can kind of drag a game out while also finishing it out. And yeah, a crazy good commander. So yeah, one that I'm not surprised to see on this list. Another one, number 18, that I'm definitely not surprised to see is Yuriko the Tiger Shadow, a 1/3 human ninja for 3 mana in total in Dimir, Commander Ninjutsu. And this is probably why this is really on this list first and foremost, because, hey, for just 2 mana, blue and a black, return unblocked attack you control back to your hand, put this on the battlefield from your hand or the command zone, tapped and attacking. Yeah, basically that breaks commander tax, essentially, because you don't need to pay the commander tax on this ever, as long as you can get one singular creature through, and that's very easy to do with a deck built around this. Essentially, you are going to be like, hey, yeah, oh, you dealt with my commander. Next turn, I'm just getting it back out for 2 mana. Oh, I dealt with your commander? Yeah, you can actually pay those commander taxes. So getting around the taxes can be a massive thing, and a thing that kind of irks players a little bit. And on top of that, whenever a ninja you control does counter each player, reveal the top card of your library, put that card in your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana value. Again, it's each opponent. You can drain your opponents quite easily, quite quickly, quite effectively by getting certain things on top of your library, or just happenstance, hitting just massive things off the top. So yeah, a very, very, very powerful commander that cheats on commander tax and also has a very powerful effect. Yeah, not surprised to see the salt score being 1.75. Again, good enough for 18th place. Next up, slightly higher salt score. Also not surprised to see Korvold Faker's King here. Again, another one that can be very powerful in the 99, but I believe this is on the list for it being a commander that is quite salty. 1.77 salt score, a 4/4 Dragon Noble with flying that costs 5 mana in total in Jund. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a counter on Korvold and draw a card. This is a commander where Wizards just threw everything in the kitchen sink at it, and yeah, they made this incredibly powerful, overly powerful. There are no limitations to it. Again, whenever you sacrifice a permanent, it can be any kind of a permanent. It doesn't specify non-token. It doesn't specify a certain kind of permanent. It's like, no, you sacrifice a land, cool. You sacrifice a token, cool, like an artifact, maybe like a treasure, which started getting big around this time as well. Yeah, you get to draw a card on top of all those extra benefits you're getting from sacrificing those things. And also, by the way, Corvo gets counters on it for some reason. So essentially, this is just a win con as well that is evasive. That can become a 21-21 incredibly quickly to just take opponents out in one shot. And then, yeah, draw your entire deck, essentially. Yeah, a crazy, crazy, overpowered commander that Wizards, again, just did everything. They're like, yeah, just here, Corvo, take everything. We want this precon to sell. There you go. So, yeah, a crazy, crazy good commander. And I'm not surprised to see that solid score at 1.77. Moving on, Narset. Yeah, this is a brutal commander to play against. This, again, is on the list because of it being a commander, in my opinion. A 3/2 human monk with first strike and hexproof. So, again, hard to deal with. That is maybe a theme here. With the hexproof, for 6 mana in total in Jeskai, whenever Narset and Lightmaster attacks, exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-creature spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. Goodness gracious. Yeah, you don't have to build the Narset deck in the way that's, the most brutal, but many players do. And that is extra turns, extra combats, extra everything, essentially. Just attack with Narset, get free things, cast those free things, take another turn. Do it again, do it again, do it again. Monopolize the time of the game. Yeah, that's enough to get a salt score of 1.78, because if you ever sat through one Narset game, you know why this is that salty. So there we go. Now that we're through the first 5, though, let's take a quick break before jumping into the rest of the 15. And we are back with Vorinclex Monstrous Raider at 15th place with a salt score of 1.79. Just barely notching out Narset. A 6/6 Phyrexian Praetor with trample and haste that costs 6 mana in total. Here we go. If you would put one or more counters on any permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those counts counter on the permanent player instead. If an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent player, they put half that many instead, rounded down. So first up, yeah, like many Phyrexians out there, well, they like to double up something for you and take away something from your opponents. And this can absolutely just shut down many strategies out there. This can shut down any kind of counter synergy strategies. Yeah, if you've got a deck that's built around +1/+1 counters, you might not get any on your creatures with that in play, essentially. Versus, if you're the Vorinclex player, you're getting twice as many. So your opponents are going to be very jealous of that, number one. Number two, hey, this works very well with certain annoying-ish strategies, or ones that some players might consider to be annoying, like, well, Infect, Poison, Toxic, all those kinds of things that essentially say, hey, oh, I just need to get like 5 poison counters on my opponent to take them out. Quite easy to do that. So yeah, this can be very good, of course, as a commander or in the 99 of those types of decks. Also, it works very well with Super Friends too, which some players can get rubbed the wrong way because it can be a long and plodding game with a lot of text. So yes, this commander and card in the 99 can work very well in some strategies that some players might not enjoy all that much. So yeah, not surprising to see this one that, again, helps you out twice as much and hurts your opponents and might shut down strategies. So yeah, I can definitely see why this is on the list. Moving on though, 14th place, another Phyrexian, Atraxa, Praetor's Voice, a 4/4 with Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink for 4 mana, green, white, blue, and black. So again, keyword soup already, and on top of that, at the beginning of your end step, proliferate. So again, kind of like Vorinclex, this can play into certain strategies that some players just don't enjoy. Again, Poison is definitely one of them. Also, yeah, Super Friends, another kind of build that some players just don't like to play against. So yes, Atraxa is definitely on here for, in my opinion, it being one of the most popular commanders out there of all time. It being a commander that many players consider to be pretty powerful and can have some pretty salty strategies. So again, 1.83, good enough for 14th place. Next up, there apparently is just a pattern here of Phyrexians, because Elesh Norn Mother Machines is next. A 4/7 Phyrexian Praetor for 4 and a white at 1.83 salt score. With Vigilance, if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of permanent you control to trigger, the ability triggers this whole time. Permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanent your opponents control to trigger. So again, like Vorinclex, shutting something down that entire decks might be built around. Yeah, there's a lot of decks out there that utilize creatures that have ETBs, or I guess permanents that have ETBs that they really would like, especially like, Blink decks, which are incredibly popular. So because of that, yeah, no, you don't get any of those at all. Oh, and by the way, I get twice as many of those. So again, I'm getting double the value. You're getting none of the value. Again, this is a brutal commander, number one. Number two, also brutal in the 99 of certain decks out there. So this one I think is a hybrid kind of reasoning as to why this has made the list. Next up, ironically, Elish Norn. Korean Cenobite, the OG Elish Norn at 1.84, just barely inching out that victory. I guess it's a victory, getting a higher salt score than its next iteration. A 4/7 Praetor with Vigilance that costs 7 mana in total in mono white. Who knew a mono white commander could bring this much salt? Other creatures you control get +2/+2. Creatures you control get -2/-2. An absurd Anthem and de-Anthem type effect, essentially all in one, saying, yeah, my creatures are gigantic, your creatures are tiny or non-existent, essentially. Yeah, basically wipe everything off the board that is 2 toughness or less, I should say, and your creatures get massive. This is a 4-point power and toughness swing, essentially, that, yes, is incredibly brutal as a commander, and also brutal in the 99 of decks out there. Yeah, just throwing this down can just turn the entire table's attention at you, because yeah, it's going to cause some problems for them. So yeah, that's good enough for 12th place. And then, yeah, apparently this is all Phyrexians all the time in these. Hey, 11th place got Jin-Gitaxias Progress Time at 1.88. 5/5 Phyrexian Praetor for 7 mana in total in blue. Whenever you cast an artifact, instant short spell, copy that spell. You may choose targets to the copy. Ability triggers only once each turn. When an opponent casts an artifact, instant short spell, counter that spell, triggers only once each turn. At least there's a limitation to it, but still, even with that, incredibly powerful, incredibly brutal. Again, you get double of something, your opponent gets half of something. All your opponents are like, hey, I gotta cast a spell that gets countered to actually just cast what I want to cast, so they're basically wasting resources. It's really hard to get through, especially against a mono blue commander like this. You're like, oh yeah, I got counter spells as well, backup, haha, fun. And yeah, you also get to double up, important things like very powerful artifacts, or get to some very good instants or sorceries. You're like, yeah, okay, I was gonna draw 7 with this, but I'll draw 14 instead. Yeah, this can be just brutal. It can be hard to deal with. And again, it can be just something that rubs your opponents the wrong way when you're like, oh yeah, you don't get what you want to do, but I get double of what I want to do. Isn't that fun? So yes, 11th place, 1.88. A lot of Phyrexians on this list. Let's see if there's any others after this break. Moving on to the top 10, starting off at 10th place, we've got Edgar Markov at 1.94 salt score, a 4/4 Vampire Knight for 6 mana in Mardu. Eminence. That word is just something already that will get players salty, myself included at some point, because I just don't like Eminence. I think it's a really unfortunately invented mechanic. Whenever you cast another vampire spell, if Edgar Markov is in the command zone or on the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token. First strike haste. Whenever Edgar Markov attacks, you get a counter on each vampire you control. Okay, so Eminence is basically like, hey, yeah, you kind of get like this world enchantment that no one can interact with right before the game even starts. It's kind of like just an automatic ley line, kind of, in that way, where it's like, oh yeah, I just have this, you can't stop it, and this one, again, is really powerful. Just basically doubling up your vampire army. Every single time you cast any kind of a vampire spell, you're getting another vampire in play. And actually, there are certain Edgar Markov decks that don't even need to get Edgar in play. It's nice to get Edgar in play, right? When it attacks you to counter each vampire control, cool. That can be very powerful. But also, you might not even need to, because this is so powerful and so quick that you can take opponents out incredibly quickly by doubling up your army in absolutely no time. Vampires is a very supported tribe, a very powerful tribe. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why this incredibly powerful commander, one of the most popular ones out there, has a salt score of 1.94. Next up, Yep, Toxrill. Not surprised to see this on the list again. 1.94 as well. 7/7 slug that costs 7 mana in total. In Dimir, though. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you control with a slime counter on it dies, you get a 1/1 black slug creature token. Pay Dimir, sacrifice a slug, draw a card. Okay, so this one basically is, hey, if this is in play and you don't deal with it, all your things are gone. All your things are gone. All your creatures are gone. There is no coming back from that. Because every single turn you get a slime counter on every single one of your creatures. Those add up, your creatures are going to become tiny, and then eventually just non-existent. Oh, and by the way, when those creatures go away, I get slugs, which I can sacrifice for card advantage too. Yeah, this is incredibly brutal as a commander and as a card in 99. 1.94, not surprised to see it up here. Next up, this one's kind of a mainstay of the Salt list. Send Triplets. Players just don't like when their cards are stolen. Send Triplets is a 3/3 human wizard that costs 5 mana in Esper. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponent. This turn, that player can't cast spells or activate abilities and plays with their hand revealed. You may play lands, cast spells for that player's hand this turn. Players don't like when you touch their hand. Yeah, they don't. And you get to say, yeah, you know what, your turn. You know, my turn's your turn. Basically, you know, I'm gonna shut you down completely. Okay, you can't do anything on my turn. You can't stop me from doing things. No activating abilities. No casting things. Oh, and your things are mine now. I'm gonna cast them. I'm gonna cast them all. All your cards are gonna be mine. I'm gonna use your own spells against you. Probably use your own creatures against you. Use all your things against you. Yet players don't like that, and because of that, again, 1.97, nearly at a 2 salt score. Let's jump things up above 2, though. Grand Arbiter Augustin the 4th, coming in at 7th place with a salt score of 2.09. A 2/3 Human Advisor for 4 mana in total and Azorius. White spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Oh, and by the way, spells your opponents control that they cast, they're 1 less. Or sorry, 1 more. Oh, yeah. No. You're not helping your opponents out. No. You might think that, hey, it's less. More. No. You're shutting down your opponents, saying, you have to pay more. I pay less. Also, other things in this deck that I'm going to be doing, probably not all that nice, because I'll have probably a bunch of counter spells that cost less for me to cast, counter your things that you paid more for, maybe some more taxing effects as well, maybe some other stacks type effects. If this kind of counter just lends itself to a kind of deck that some tables don't enjoy. Yeah, like a stacksy control counter strategy. Not the most fun. And again, when you're getting a massive discount on your things, your opponents have to pay more. It's kind of like a Phyrexian effect again, a Praetor effect that's like, yeah, I get more, you get less. I guess it's the reverse in this, but still, absolutely crazy. 7th place, 2.09. Next up, Emrakul the Promised End, coming at 6th place with a salt score of 2.13. This is a brutal commander, as well as, of course, a brutal card in the 99 of many Eldrazi tribal decks out there, or just, hey, a giant, massive thing. A 13/13 Eldrazi for 13 mana, but you're never going to pay that. 1 less cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. Whenever you cast Emrakul, you gain control of your opponent during that controller's next turn. After that turn, they take an extra turn, flying trample protection from instance. So first of all, this is a 2-shot KO. That is really hard to deal with. It's protection from instance, also has Flample. Have fun with that. So again, 2-shot KO, maybe even 1 if you give it double strike, of course. Also, yeah, just a little thing that kind of put this on the list, though. Hey, players don't like when you take their hands also, but they don't like when you take their turns. So stealing a player's turn from them, again, utilizing all their resources against them. Yeah, saying like, oh, cool, they got a cool army. Let's swing that at the other player that I don't like right now. Take that player out, maybe take out some of these creatures out too. Great, things are going great. Maybe even put them in a position that doesn't matter they get a turn after this one, because they're in such a devastated position that they have no hand, they've got nothing to do. Yeah, stealing someone's turn can be quite salt-inducing. So there you go. A reason why this is on this list. Many reasons, of course. Again, a massive threat, hard to deal with. And of course, stealing turns, that's a no-no many times. So yeah, 6th place at 2.13. Let's take a quick break before we jump into the top 5. And we're back at 5th place, and we're back to Phyrexians! Yay! Shield of the Apocalypse. A 4/5 Phyrexian prayer with Death Touch for 4 mana. Salt score of 2.14. It's getting up there. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. When an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. So again, with the Phyrexians, hey, you get double, they get double the pain, essentially. Yeah, you are getting one end of the stick that is much better than the other end, where your opponents are just in misery, because essentially you get to just gain a bunch of life. Drawing cards is very easy in mono black, and usually that comes with a price of losing life, but now you're actually gaining life to either offset it or just gain even more life off of drawing those cards. Whereas your opponents, hey, every single time you do what you just want to do in Commander, in Magic in general, draw cards, you're getting punished for that a ton. 2 life is a ton per card. Of course, you can have other things in this deck, like Underworld Dreams, essentially, to really punish your opponents further. Yeah, this is a brutal commander when you build around this properly. An absurd commander that can take opponents out in absolutely no time. And of course, yeah, very good in the 99 of decks as well. So yeah, 2.14 salt score. Not surprised with it there. Next up, completely because of power, most likely, well, and because of some builds around it, Urza, Lord High Artificer, 2.18. The 4th place salt score commander. A 1/4 Human Artificer for 4 mana. Enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 colors construct artifact creature token that gets bigger for each artifact you control. Tap an untapped artifact creature. Sorry, artifact, not artifact creature. Tap an untapped artifact you control, add blue. Pay 5, shuffle your library, exile the top card, play it for free, essentially. Yeah, this commander kind of just broke things open back when I believe Modern Horizons was what this came out with. Came out because, oh my goodness, yeah, this is a crazy commander that turns every single one of your artifacts, not just, non-token, every single one of your artifacts into a mana rock. Every single one of them is now a mana rock. And also, you can do some pretty crazy things like, Winter Orb, you can shut things down. So, yeah, even just the power level of this commander is absurd, insult-inducing, and just what it can do. But also, yeah, there are some less than desirable decks that can be built with it. Again, Staxy type decks that can be incredibly powerful with it, that can just really shut the game down and make things not nearly as fun for your opponents potentially. And also, it can be kind of salt-inducing too when you shuffle your library and just happen to hit something off the top of your library that just changes the game in your favor, and your opponents are like, yeah, we didn't really want you to just happen to hit that, but you're getting all the luck now on top of all these things that you're doing. Yeah, a 2.18, not surprised to see it up there. Next up, though, with a salt score of 2.33, Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur, a 5/4 Praetor, Phyrexian Praetor, for 10 mana in total with Flash. At the beginning of your end step, draw 7 cards. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. Like I said earlier, with Send Triplets, players don't like when you mess with their hands. This makes it so your opponent doesn't have a hand. That should be fine, right? No, not really. Yeah, this is a crazy good commander and card in 99 where it's like, yeah, if I play it, the game is basically over if you can't deal with it. You are obviously in blue, so you got ways to protect it, like counter spells. And you're going to have plenty of those because you're going to be drawing, on your end step, 7 cards. So you're going to be able to replace essentially your entire hand, be able to essentially say, I got the perfect hand. I've got everything I need. I'm going to shut things down. I can flash this in whenever I want to just surprise my opponents in the perfect situation to shut them down. And they also just don't get to keep any hands, which is just perfect for me, bad for them. Opponents have the top deck essentially try to stop you. Again, a crazy, crazy powerful and brutal effect, 2.33. Next up, and I was wondering if this one's going to be first place actually, Tergrid, God of Fright. God of Salt is what I like to call Tergrid. A 4/5 God with Menace for 5 mana. Salt score jumps up to a 2.52. Goodness gracious. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard on the battlefield under your control. This is It That Betrays as a commander for so much cheaper that does more. Again, sacrifice a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card. You get it for free. So this is essentially incentivizing you to do a massive edict deck where you're like, yeah, everyone sacrifices everything and discards everything, and players might not like that, and also they don't like when you steal their things, and you get to do that too. Oh, and by the way, there's more! On the backside, Tergrid's Lantern, Ledger Artifact for 4 mana, tap target player, lose 2 life unless they sacrifice an land permanent, discard a card, pay 3 and a black, untap it. So, hey, also you just happen to have a card that essentially on the back of this absurdly brutal commander is just an infinite win condition essentially. If you've got infinite mana, there you go. You just win the game. So yeah, this commander, not surprised to see this one up there. 2.52, one of the saltiest cards of all time. One that, oh goodness gracious, just probably should never have been created. Wizards, what were you thinking? That being said, let's take a quick break before we jump into number 1. And coming in at first place, we've got, yeah, you guessed it, yet another Phyrexian Praetor, Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. The OG Vorinclex made it there, a 7/6 Praetor with Trample that costs 8 mana in total. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. When your opponent taps a land for mana, that land doesn't untap during control checks on tap step. This is essentially a stacks commander, or just a stacks card in the 99. That just doubles up your resources and halves your opponents. So again, messing with opponents' hands, not nice. Messing with their turn, not nice. Messing with their mana, goodness gracious, how dare you do that, especially when you're doubling up your own. So again, a card that can really just change the game completely, where your opponents are like, I don't know when to tap my lands, what to tap them for, how to do this. Just shutting yourself down by tapping your lands when your opponent is like, I've got so much mana, look at me. It's a card that's super good, obviously as a commander, but yeah, I think this one more so in the 99 essentially is where it really causes problems, because there's a lot of decks out there that can be like, yeah, I wouldn't mind a mana doubler that also has my opponent's mana. Absolutely absurd. So again, 2.55, just barely beating out Tergrid, again by 0.03. Vorinclex, congratulations, you are the saltiest commander, apparently, of the rankings this year. But now this episode is coming to a close. It's time for me to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts are on these commanders. Again, which ones do you think are on this list because of their factors in the 99? And which one are purely because of the commander factor that they have? What is the most brutal? What are the most saltiest commander that you can think of? Are there any on this list that aren't on this list, actually, that did not show up? So let me know. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.